In this video, I'll be showing you how to build a sales prep automation workflow that will allow you to research any prospect who try to book a meeting with you over a booking form in your company. So this workflow will automatically research your prospect's company information, services, as well as its external view, for example, its presence on social media, market reports, industry trends, etc. Based on that report summary, it will also automatically identify the likely pain points of this specific prospect, as well as the value proposition that you should be attacking. For example, which angles, what values, what services you should be providing as an offer for this specific prospect, or in one specific PDF file. So I don't think I need to mention that it will automatically save you hours and hours of time of actually researching the company, but actually driving the sales forward, right? So let's actually dive into it. So normally, what I mean by that is it is a sales prep research automation. Because normally you need to imagine that in the sales pipeline, the prospect booked a call with you, and the sales prep usually do the deep research, right? So you can imagine now if it's your company, someone tries to book a meeting, usually the salesperson will have to do the research about the prospect, right? And they usually spend hours and hours trying to draft a report, preparing for the discovery call, and obviously this wastes a lot of time. So it's about time that could actually be spent in actually getting more sales, right? And actually being in sales rather than doing the research. And another thing is that when the salesperson is trying to do this research because they're on a tight schedule, because they have different prospects to research, it's very easy for the sales rep to actually just miss details that because they just haven't been thorough enough in terms of their research. For example, normally people would just go on Google and try to research their prospect, right? So it's very easily overlooked that there might be hidden or nuanced like competitor analysis, right? Competitor research or industry trends that you actually need to dig a little bit deeper. That could again spend a lot of time doing that. And most salespeople don't actually have the time to do that because they need to be on the sales course, so they kind of overlooked that kind of important aspect. Here's the sad face of that salesperson needing to do this deep research. Alternatively, you can use an automation workflow, like a deep research workflow, where it will do the web scraping as well as generating, before the call, a summary, a research summary of your prospect. Not only that, it will also lead you into how to best present the company's offer to this particular lead, right? Because the workflow that I'm going to show you will also automatically identify the likely pain points of the prospect. And based on your company's information, not the prospect, your company information, which offer, which angle you should be attacking during the discovery call, right? So that will kind of guide you through what value proposition you should be giving during the discovery call. So it's like it basically the sales rep doesn't need to do any work but take that information that's given by the AI and go into the discovery call and just based on the recommendation, just guide the prospect through the call, right? So that's where the advantage of this automation comes from. Now, it will be a make.com workflow. But before actually diving into the specifics, what it does is you have a webhook, and we're going to be, for this demo, we're going to be using cow.com. So whenever someone tries to book a demo with you, you will run through the agency info node, which is basically information about you, your company. So in this case, it will be my company, my services, right? And then it will pass through two research nodes using Perplexity AI. If you didn't know, Perplexity AI is basically a combination of a large language model and a search engine. So it's able to take your prompt, crawl through the internet for resources, and then produce a report back. So you will have two steps. The first step will be researching the company internally. So as I said, for example, the About Us section of the company, right? What they actually do, what services do they provide, anything internally will be done through the first step. And the second step will be done as like the outside perspective. So what is the perceived value of the company to the outside? Its projection to the outer world, its presence in the social media, people comments, people opinions, reviews about the company, and for example, has it made any public reports, research papers, etc. This will all be taken into considerations, right? So And then after the research, it will then go through a research summary note, right? So it will summarize the research done by the previous two notes. And then we will be using another AI model to give the value proposition of the company, right? So like the value proposition of you. So like based on the information about you, your company, and the research done by the Perplexity modules, what angles, what offers you should be providing to your prospects. That's kind of the initial idea. And then you would just basically do some sort of email formatting and you will send an email to your sales rep. That's kind of like the high level review of what's going on. So let's actually dive into the make.com flow. The first thing you need to do is set up a webhook. This will automatically connect to cow.com. Now, if you haven't used cow.com before, just literally type cow.com and set up an account. It should be really straightforward. Now, when you go to cow.com, the first thing that you should be able to do, in case you didn't know, cow.com again is just basically a tool that allows you to create and manage and book meetings. It's a little bit like Google Calendar, but it can be linked to your Google Calendar to manage different meeting types. Now, what I want you to do is you go ahead and create plus new, right? Just click plus new, that will create a new event. And for the purposes of this exercise, I'm just going to type 30 minutes meeting, right? Notice that cow.com will automatically generate a unique URL. And you can, from here, you can select the duration to be 30 minutes. Now, I'm not going to continue here because I already got a 30-minute meeting, but just click continue. You should be able to generate an event type of 30-minute meeting. Now, I want you to actually click on the 30-minute meeting. And from here, you go to advanced. This is where you can kind of set like the different questions, the booking questions on your form. Because right now, if you click on this review button, opening link in new tab, it will actually show you something like a calendar, and people can like select different time, right? So if I select 11:30, for example, it will then pop up a booking form. It will say your name, your email address, your company website, what is the biggest challenge and potential growth point, and additional notes, right? This can all be configured within the advanced settings of your event type. So as you can see here, booking questions, all you would need to do is click add a question, and on the label, just ask like, what is the biggest challenge of the company, right? And you just click add, but I already have it, so I'm not going to go ahead and add, but you can go ahead and add like company website, what is the biggest challenge and potential growth point, additional notes, etc. Right? So you will basically configure your booking form to contain these questions. Now, once that's done, click on the preview button, right? And you can see that you can just fill that in. And for the purposes of this demo, let's say it's coming from apple.com, right? And one thing I forgot to also mention actually is that before you kind of go ahead and actually book a meeting, you should select webhook. So what this does is it actually connects to this make.com workflow, which means that whenever a meeting is booked through cow.com, this webhook within the make.com will automatically trigger, meaning that information will be sent from the cow.com to this make automation workflow, right? So what I want you to go ahead and do and click new webhook. Now, within make.com, you just create a webhook module, right? I hope you know how to create that. And then you would literally just copy address to clipboard and you would just paste it here, right? So if I just go ahead and do that, and you just paste it here, right? And now, this is important. This step is actually important. So for the event triggers, we only want booking created, aka this one here. The reason why is because we only want to trigger this workflow when someone booked a meeting, not when someone canceled a meeting, right? Or someone requests a meeting, right? So we're just going to delete all the different tags that are not booking created. Now you get the idea, just delete the rest. And what you should be left is only booking created as the only event trigger with the make.com webhook setup here. Hope that makes sense. Now with the webhook setup, you can now go ahead and actually book a meeting. So what is the biggest challenge potential growth point? Too much customer support ticket to hand, right? And we're just going to leave the additional notes blank for now, and we'll just click confirm. Now, because this webhook, I set this immediate as data arrives. Let me just move myself. Immediately as data arrives. What it means is that if I click confirm here, it should automatically run the entire workflow, right? So let's actually click confirm. The meeting is scheduled. Now, if you go back to make.com, you can see that it is now running through the agency information, and now it's going through the research note. And now, as you can see, the workflow successfully ran, and if I just, it should have sent to my email account. So if I literally just go to my email, you can see that it contains my name, my email, and then it has like company summary, key facts, alignment and value proposition, and key questions, right? So you can probably see like how useful it would be for the sales rep to have access to this research instantly without doing like their own manual Google search. And what's going to happen is, let me just kind of explain a little bit what's going to happen. So if you want a template, you can just follow the link in the description. It's completely free. It's in my newsletter, so it's completely free. So you have access to that. So what happened is it goes through the agency info. The agency info is basically, as I explained, is kind of the information that's about your agency, so about my company, right? My agency. So the two things that you need from the webhook really is if you click on payload and if you click on responses, you should see company website value. That's one of the variable that you need. The other variable that you need is within title and value, which is basically too many customer support ticket, which is basically the pain points that the client filled out, the prospect filled out when they're filling in the booking page, right, in Cal.com. So these are the two variables that you really need. The rest you can kind of just ignore it. With the agency info, what we did here is basically a prompt, basically saying about us, but Legacy AI is a leading AAA, and then we basically have like a little bit of information about our mission and value, right, vision. You can, again, it should be adapted to your use cases, so feel free to like change it to your own kind of mission vision. And then you have different services that we provide, customer service automation, workflow orchestration and process optimization, the development integration of autonomous AI agents, blah 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 blah. You can read on and on, right? I'm not going to go through each point of it. You can just use the template and kind of read through it if you want. Again, adapt it to your use case, right? So you can see like this is kind of like a profile of my company, of my agency, right? And this is just basically saving it into a variable called the agency description, right? That's what I'm doing, right? I just create a variable called agency description. The value will be the long article about my company. With that information in mind, it then sent to Perplexity. Now, if you haven't got a Perplexity subscription, I highly recommend you go to Perplexity AI, set up your own API key. You might need like $3 or something, or $4 to kind of get started to generate your own API key. And then once you have the API key, go back to make.com and just add the API key here, right? Now, for the model, I just choose Sonar Pro. Now, you feel free to explore that, but for me, for now, for this specific build, Sonar Pro is just a good enough like default model to go to. And the prompt, this is the most important part. We're basically telling Perplexity, please research and analyze the company, identify the website. Again, that's the company website value, right? Company website value from the responses, company website value, right? So you just literally, which is apple.com, you just drag this into here, right? To do the mapping, you research to cover the following aspects. Again, as I explained, the first research should be the internal side of things, which is the company overview, right? Summarize the core business, mission, and key products or service offered, market positioning, describe the target audience, competitive landscape, and then unique selling propositions, blah, 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 blah. Operational insights, content branding. So again, these are all the internal information about the company, which is Apple in this case. And then we just say, please compile this information into a detailed summary. This research will be later integrated with client, provide details on the challenges and aspirations, as well as a description of our agency services to produce a data-driven, insightful report outlining the best opportunity, right? So this is just giving the context of the AI, hey, this is actually part of a bigger automation pipeline, right? So yeah, that's the kind of the prompt behind the first research module. The second research module, again, is still within Perplexity, is what I explained is the external kind of perceived value of the prospect, which is Apple, right? So again, please research the same structure, but this time it's external trusted source, right, rather than internal sources. So go beyond the company's own website and explore reputable news outlets, industry, etc. Right? But analysis should cover the following aspects, which is company overview, right, summary of company's core business, media news insight, again, basically comments, reviews on social media or media, market reputation, competitiveness, how people perceive the company, financial and strategic developments, public perception, etc. Right? So kind of how the outside world perceives this company, and then you would just follow this prompt, and it will research all those information. Now, after those two research modules, we will then go through a research summary module, which we're using Claude 3.5, simply because Claude is better than GPT, at least in writing and summarizing. So that's why I went with Claude. Again, you're free to use GPT. Like it works just fine. It just for me personally, I just like using that. But you can use GPT. And then within the text, you can basically have a very kind of easy prompt to go to. If I just expand this out, task is really simple prompt. Create a well-rounded summary of the company based on this research. Format the summary. Important rules: do not add any additional text before the summary or after the fact, which is sometimes because AI can sometimes hallucinate and they can just write some garbage like before the summary. So you don't want that to happen. So you just make that extremely clear. Again, the variable here, message content and message content, is simply within the two research module, research one, research two. You go to choices, and then you go to message, content, and then you just drag it here, right? Same with research two. So hopefully you know where these variables come from. And after you've done the summary of the research, you then send it to GPT module for value proposition. Now, the reason why I use GPT module is because GPT has its own reasoning module, which is the O series, the O3 or O1 mini. And I feel like they're better for reasoning tasks than Claude. So that's why I use this GPT in here. So again, you can see like it's not like static. It's not like you just choose one model, and then you just stick with it throughout the entire flow. The choice of the model actually matters a little bit. Depends on your use case, right? So in this use case, we're trying to basically, given all the information, we're asking the AI to come up with the value proposition that it should be giving, right? So again, as you can see here, role, you're an AI-powered opportunities discovery assistant, right? And then your task, your mission is to uncover valuable insights and identify potential areas where our agency can best blah, 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 right? And then you generate 3 compelling paragraphs that highlight the specific opportunities where our agency can provide the most value to the client, emphasize on how our services can help them overcome the challenges, optimize the process, and achieve their goals. So you have basically 3 paragraphs, right? So in the first paragraph, focus on the client's most pressing pain point. And then in the second paragraph, explore the client's dreams and aspirations. So that's kind of like that dream goal. This is the first paragraph is about the pain point. Second paragraph is about the aspirations. And the third paragraph is a unique opportunity the client might not have considered before. So again, that you can see how this is nuanced, right? This is not just like a really easy summary task. You're asking AI to kind of come up with a unique angle that the client, the prospect, might not have even heard of. So that requires a little bit more intelligence. So that's what we went with the O3 Mini, because they're better for reasoning tasks. And we're simply asking the AI to number these questions as follows, so kind of a little bit more structure to it. And you just say, what is a good question? You just define a good question, which is something that will enable positive discussion, etc. Right? So these are basically examples. And then you just have some rules, kind of like context to go over, and you just map the variables as before, right? So you give them all the information that you already have based on the previous steps. Now, the AI would then generate the value proposition, as you can see here, the results, right? And after that, it then passes into another Anthropic Claude, again, simply because Claude is better at summarizing and writing. And you basically have the text here, and you just format this content as simple HTML, because we are kind of sending this email to our sales rep, right? So in email, it's better, within email automation, you kind of need the content in HTML. So you basically ask the AI to format it in HTML, and you basically have the name, the email request, the company summary, right, content text, which is actually from the research summary module, right, from this research summary module, right, um, that that exists. And the alignment and value proposition is the one that we created just by the GPT-o3 model, right, the reasoning model. And after everything is emailed from the properly, you then connect it to Gmail module and you just send the output of this email formatter into your Gmail, right? So you would just basically send everything into an email and send it off to your sales rep. And yeah, that is kind of the idea behind this automation workflow. So again, you can see that how valuable it would be if like you can actually do this, hundreds and hundreds of times, like the compounding time saved from running this automation. Again, you can kind of adapt it to your use case, right? You can do this to analyze your customer within the CRM database. Instead of adding a webhook within the cloud.com, you can just crawl through the Google Suite row by row, and then you can kind of, from there, you can just essentially do the research line by line, row by row of your customer, right, etc. Right. So that's kind of the idea behind the research automation workflow. Hopefully that helps you guys.